So, do you remember cursed images? You know, that one trend that was around, was it 3 years ago? Christ, someone should stop this time thing that's been going on, huh? Back in the day, you could slap some of these over some Earthbound music or Minecraft cave noises, and that's a free 100,000 views. And to my about to apply for a Walmart job looking ass, that's quite a bit. But nowadays, you hardly ever see this exact thing anymore, but it did still have a noticeable impact on the internet. Backrooms and then liminal spaces, images relating to particular phobias, hell, even stuff you might have seen in a dream. Even though cursed images is never really a thing you hear anymore, the trend has left a considerable impact. The word cursed has even been engraved in the internet vocabulary, for better or for worse. And so now that the trend has all but fizzled out, it's nighttime I cover this, am I right? Where did this exactly come from, and what constituted a cursed image in the first place anyways? As far as my digging goes, and what seems to go along with general search interest, the beginning of ascribing things as cursed images came about in October of 2015. Around this time, it appears a Tumblr account by the name of Cursed Images manifested, with the first post being this image. The only description we get of this image is just the phrase, "This image is cursed." At the time, I'd assumed this was a pretty novel thing to stumble across, and it's even complete with caretaker music playing on the page, which actually startled me for a second. I didn't know you could do that. From there, it wouldn't be a few months later, in May and June of 2016, that the idea of ascribing things as cursed really began to catch on, and about a month later in July, 2 more accounts popped up relating to the idea. That being another Tumblr blog under the name of Extremely Cursed Images, and a Twitter account just known as Cursed Images. From here, the concept became even farther reaching, with even news articles publishing the trend. I guess nothing really changes, huh? The Twitter account eventually went inactive in the same year, its last post being labeled number 666, posted on Halloween of 2016. A fitting conclusion, I do say. The 2 Tumblr blogs, however, are still kicking around to this day. Kind of nice to see, something from the past still going along. A reminder that things still exist out of the public conscience. Now that's a novel concept. However, the true explosion is yet to come, as one more source would be needed to push it into a true trend. That being Soot House of all things. Yeah, remember Soot House? Actually, come to think of it, I wonder what the guy that ran it is doing now. Huh. It really does always come full circle to Minecraft, doesn't it? From there, more people begun to get in on the trend, posting compilations of images with some sort of music laid over it. Furthermore, it eventually saw a rise of the backrooms, which in itself spawned 2 different trends of its own, one of which being liminal spaces. And then there was also backrooms lore, which, from what I could tell, initially expanded into just the front rooms, and then it became 3 tiers of the backrooms, and finally, last I checked, it expanded to an SCP-like database. And hell, the base format even continues on today, with different types of images meant to provoke different emotions. But now I ask, what even constituted an image as being called cursed in the first place? What was the initial qualities that made it so unique? When I first looked at cursed images, I got this sort of uneasy feeling. Something almost inexplicable. Some of them didn't even have anything outwardly wrong at first glance. And this is probably why they began to be known as cursed in the first place. The concept of a cursed form of media isn't something new. In fact, what this first reminded me of was stories of cursed paintings, pieces of art created that were said to bring misfortune or even spirits alongside them. Even in modern-day stories, the idea of a ghost haunting a creative medium is still a common thing. Like that one time the ghost of Crash Bandicoot himself possessed my off-brand PS3 controller. Some say ever since then the inputs have never worked correctly. So with that, it's no real wonder why cursed images eventually came to be called that. With the seemingly unknowable nature, you might come to the conclusion that something is wrong on a higher level, like the picture itself harbors malicious intent. Well, at least that's how it felt to me when this first came to be. Over time, I began to notice a trend with these images, what seemed like 3 criteria that all played a role in defining this genre. Absurdity, the uncanny valley, and age. Wherever you look, these pictures will have at least 2 of these traits. The absurdity is self-explanatory, some form of strangeness that the brain has trouble rationalizing, a repetition in a certain object or thing, something being in a situation you wouldn't expect it to be. These leave the mind to practically go wild on speculation, grasping at some sort of explanation, trying to piece together a story from what seems to be nothing. But there's also the cousin of absurdity, the uncanny valley, a strange instinctual fear of something that looks like you, but not quite. From what I could gather, the most basic explanation is this stems from simple evolution. Mimicry is something of a common occurrence in nature, replicating the look of another animal for whatever reason. Some butterflies have eye patterns on their wings, which can appear like the eyes of predators. And of course, if something mimics one's own species with the intent of catching prey, or perhaps another species, that could be particularly dangerous. In fact, it's not something just exclusive to humans. Many animals seem to have an innate fear of this as well. Walking up to one in a suit made to look like them will almost never fail to provoke fear. But then again, I am practically an astro abomination in disguise, and no one seems to blink an eye. Maybe the whole thing is just completely arbitrary. And who knows? Maybe at some point need to fear something that looked human, but wasn't, was a necessity. But if there's one through line that seems to accompany everything else, it's age. I mean, just look at some of these photos. They're grainy and muddy, and their contents are often that of a time long ago, before day-to-day photos became such a professionalized thing. It's like no matter how hard you look at it, some of the aspects of the picture will always elude you, lost to the quality degradation or just the functionality of cameras at the time. I think it actually taps into a similar fear analog horror does. I don't know about you, but older cassette footage scared me like crazy back in the day. I remember for one class there was this Halloween PSA, and it inexplicably kept me up at night afterwards. The muffled audio, the low quality footage, and screen artifacting. It always felt like there was something you couldn't quite discern, lost to archaic technology. And what if this lost information was telling you something more sinister? Behind the blurry visuals, you don't know what could be lurking about. That's why I feel is also the appeal of analog horror, giving us the obvious indication that something more is wrong, but not giving enough to have a full picture. And we all know the internet has a continual fascination with horror. May dedicate their careers to either producing that genre or analyzing it. So when something that felt truly new came along, of course it got picked up. I mean, have you seen the market for horror? It desperately needs that. And while the idea of cursed images hit its peak long ago, you can still see remnants of the idea. In times where trends die out within weeks and new ideas are blown into the ground, seeing something with notable remains is quite refreshing. Maybe it'll continue to telephone across the internet until the idea itself becomes completely unrecognizable, or it might just eventually fade into darkness. It might just eventually be only known as a phrase used for anything mildly weird, and also doctored Minecraft images. Yes, truly, things will change, but Minecraft is always constant.